Hi everyone, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel Harshmeet Study Circle. I hope all of you are doing good. The Government of India recently released this year's Union Budget. Now, while the budget is obviously extremely important, there is one more document that the government comes up with just one day before the budget, that is called the Economic Survey. If you compare the two, budget is mostly about the predictions of how the next year will be about. While Economic Survey is about what the government has achieved, it is filled with data, numbers, facts, a lot of important graphs from the side of the government itself. So, one, it is extremely dense with data, and second, it is very authentic data because it is coming from the government itself, and that is why it is one of the most important documents for your examinations, both for the prelims and the mains examination point of view. This year's economic budget had 13 chapters in total. I am here to start a new series where I will be summarizing for you one by one all the 13 chapters. So I will be taking out the most important information from chapter number 1 in this video. I'll be showing you a few graphs also. This information has been made easy for you to understand. At the end, I'll also have some practice questions for you so that you can know what kind of questions you can expect. But before we dive deep into this year's economic survey and what did it say, for those who don't know, let me first explain what the Economic Survey is. As I told you, Economic Survey is an official document released by the Government of India, by the Union Ministry of Finance, and it is released one day before the Union Budget. So, while the budget mostly tells about the government's plan of the next year, or the year that will start now from 1st of April, Economic Survey tells about the condition of the country in the past 1 year. About our imports, export, GDP number, about the growth, the predictions for the growth, all of that is in the economic survey. It talks about global trends as well. So it is released by the Ministry of Finance and it is an indicator about past financial year. And it also talks about the challenges that we are facing. And interestingly, it's not just about economics. For example, in the past, economic surveys have talked about agriculture. They have talked about judiciary. They have talked about how there are many cases pending in the country, how to resolve the suggestions given. So it's not just about economics, it's about a lot of other things. So this is what economic survey is all about. Now, let me give you a few important things about this before we dive into chapter number 1. So who prepares the economic survey? It is the Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance. So Ministry of Finance has multiple departments working under it. One of them is called Department of Economic Affairs. This is the same department, by the way, that prepares the annual budget also. So they prepare the economic survey under the guidance of the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India. Chief Economic Advisor, it is his note that is on the first page of the economic survey. So he is a primary author, coordinator. Economic division under Ministry of Finance has many other economists. And the inputs, the data is gathered from multiple resources such as RBI, Niti Aayog, etc. Now, this year's, that is 2025, economic survey that has just been released, it has been under the guidance of V. Anant Nageswar because he is the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India right now. So, whoever holds this position, ex officio, that is the person under whose leadership this economic survey comes out. And when is it released? As I said, one day before the Union Budget. It is released so that all the numbers are out in the open. Now, if you look at the history of it, it started way back after our independence. So it has been a long-standing tradition. 1950-51 when it first started. But until 1964, it was not released separately. Until 1964, it was actually a part of the Union Budget itself. It was after 1964, since then, that the economic survey has been separated. And there is one separate document, economic survey, and the budget is a separate document altogether. So it has been a tradition since we became a republic, but again, since 1964, it has been a separate document. Before we dive into chapter number 1, again reminding you, I am running the prelims crash course for 2025. It's in the form of a questions marathon. It's on my own app, where every alternate day I have a class where I discuss 25 questions. Along with explanations, you get the recorded classes, you get the PDFs for you to revise. It will cover all the subjects till the end, including current affairs as well, to help you revise. If you want to enroll for this, you can download my app. I've given the link of the app in the description of this video. Make sure that if you have any question, you can get in touch with me on WhatsApp as well. I've given my number in the description of the video. Let's see then. The first chapter of this year's economic survey is titled The State of the Economy Getting Back into the Fast Lane. So it talks about what is the state of economy right now, meaning at what rate are we growing, what is the rate of growth around the entire world, what are the challenges that we are facing, the global trends, etc. This is what the topic of the chapter is. So it starts by saying that 2024 has been a turbulent year around the entire world, and it has been the case because of many reasons. There have been multiple conflicts. The Ukraine-Russia war has went on, Israel and Hamas getting into a war again, and there have been multiple such issues of countries confronting with each other, because of which the global trade has been up and down. Whenever you have these situations where two or more big countries are not at good terms with each other, there are sanctions all around, it leads to disruption in the supply chain. For example, Ukraine exports a lot of wheat, sunflower oil, etc. Those prices went up across the entire world because the supply chain were disrupted. Because of this, there have been some disruption around the world. Despite all of this, the economic survey says that India's real GDP is estimated to be 6.4% in financial year 2025. Now, please understand this. It is an expectation estimate that this is what our GDP will be in financial year 2025. And the economic survey says that it is a good number and it will be achieved mainly because of agricultural output and services led expansion. Now, please understand what they mean to say is that we are not expecting a lot from manufacturing. If the three components of economy is agriculture, manufacturing and services, we are mainly expecting growth to come from services and a robust agricultural output, but we are not expecting a lot from manufacturing. So that is not a good sign, because India has been trying to give a push to make in India, to give more jobs to people, because out of all the three, agriculture, services and manufacturing, most of the jobs can be unlocked through manufacturing only, which is where India is lagging. Let's first talk about the global economic scenario. This is what the survey's first chapter talks about. It says that the global trends, if you look at the world economy, in 2023, global economy grew by 3.3%, expected to grow at 3.2% in the current year 2024. Next year's IMF projections are 3.3. Again, all these are IMF projections that the survey quotes. The survey says that services will be the main growth driver. Economy or around the world, multiple economies, not just India, have struggled to give a push to manufacturing. Now, see, manufacturing is a tricky thing to get right. China has done that, some other countries have done that, but it's very tricky. Manufacturing also is tricky because many countries are now withdrawing from it because it has a negative impact on the environment. Many developed countries, especially, are pushing towards services because it's not that labor intensive. India right now, because we have so many people to give employment to, for us giving a push to manufacturing also is a top priority. The economic survey also says that the global trends still display a bit of uncertainty. Ukraine-Russia war and the other conflicts have led to the trade uncertainties not going away anywhere. What about some areas? There are some regional performances that the survey talks about. It says if you look at the US, their expected rate of growth is 2.8%. Now, please don't compare this by saying, oh, we are growing at 6.5%, US is only 2.8. The base is very different. For us, the base is much lower. It's like saying that, let's say if you earn 100 rupees, let's say your salary is 100 rupees, and there's someone else whose salary is 1 lakh rupees, okay? Now, if this person, the 100 rupee guy, gets an increment of 50%, and this guy gets an increment of even 1%, just see the difference. For him, 50% increment means his salary will be 150. For him, even 1% increment will be his salary will increase by 1000 rupees. So when the base is much larger, you don't need such a big number of growth. So for US, even 2.8% is a pretty good number. In Europe or Eurozone, growth has remained sluggish, means not as expected, about 0.8%, is not even 1%. Germany, that has been the major driver of European growth in the past 2 decades, it is slowing down because of weakness in manufacturing. China also, their manufacturing has been slowing down as per the economic survey. It says that there is low private consumption because there is a downward trend in the population in China also that we are seeing, because of which the private consumption, local people are not buying as much as they used to, and the investments also are slowing down. Similarly, at the global level, there are inflation pressures also that have moderated. The inflation is not as high as it used to be. About the G20 nations, the survey says that the G20 nations have also shown some protectionist measures. Protection measures means a lot of countries are trying to make sure that the other countries don't import a lot of products to them. For example, in India, we have Made in India. We don't want our products or our country to use products imported from China or other countries. So we are giving a push to our own local products, which is called protectionist policy, protectionist measures. So many G20 countries are actually giving a push to these protectionist measures, which has affected about 12.7% of the total G20 trade. Because of this, again, the world where we are proud to say that we are a globalized world, that seems to be decreasing slightly. Many countries are now making strict provisions not to allow other products to enter their countries. US also, with Donald Trump coming back to power and the policy of America first, seems to be going to the path of protectionist policy. This was the global scenario in that screenshot. Let's talk about what India has to offer or what India has done in the year. This is what the economic survey says. So first, the survey says our estimated GDP growth for financial year 25 will be 6.4%, which will again make India the fastest growing major economy in the world. It says that agriculture will be a major driver because of kharif production reaching an all-time high. Services sector will remain strong, IT export, etc. Manufacturing will face difficulty. Now, this is not something new. We are used to manufacturing not giving us the kind of output that we had hoped for. So difficulties in the form of manufacturing will continue to remain. Survey also talks about investment and consumption trends. It says that private consumption, that is the people buying within the country, will remain stable. The good part is the government is investing a lot in capital expenditure. So a lot of money is being spent in infrastructure building, bridges, roads, airports, etc. That is the capex, capital expenditure. It has increased by 8.2% between July and November. Now this is a very good sign. When a country, especially in a developing country, gives a push to capital expenditure, invest a lot of money in building roads, airports, etc. It means number one, you are building a lot of jobs, and secondly, you're making it easier to do business. So you're giving a push to the economy by spending more money, by creating more jobs as well. This is a trend, a graph to show you the comparison between India and the global GDP growth. As you can see, our GDP growth in India is way above the global average. Please understand, when you say that India is the fastest growing economy in the world, please quote, India is the fastest growing major economy in the world, because there are many small countries with a much smaller base that may have a larger growth, but in terms of major economies, we are the fastest growing. The survey in the first chapter also talks about some macroeconomic stability and fiscal health of the country. For example, it talks about imports and exports. So exports increased by 5.6% in the first half. H1 means first half of the year. So first half basically means from, as you know, India's financial year starts from April. So from 1st April to 6 months. That is from 1st April to the end of, let's say, September. It also says that imports also grew, but slightly at a very small pace, which is a good sign that our exports are growing faster as compared to the imports. Our forex reserves stood at about $630 billion, which is also a good sign, because the more forex reserves you have, the better you are prepared for any uncalled sanctions, or not the sanctions, but any trade disruptions, oil prices increasing in the global market, etc. It also talks about our inflation monetary policy. Food inflation will ease, means the prices will not be as high or increasing as high, because Rabi production will be much better this year. RBI also is focusing on monetary easing. It is making sure that we provide enough capital for the businesses also to expand their business, to expand their ventures. They are making sure that the inflation eases down in India. This is how our GDP has been growing in terms of the three sectors: services, industry, manufacturing and agriculture. The biggest contributor is services, and then it comes from agriculture, then it comes from manufacturing, that is the industry sector. Survey also talks about what are the challenges and the risks that we are facing in our growth. First, external risk, conflicts arising in Middle East, which has always been a part of the world where stability is very far off. In Europe also there are global conflicts that are rising. Now with Donald Trump coming to power, America also doesn't seem to be interested in playing the role of a stabilizer. So it remains to be seen how trade wars, etc. are disrupted. Because as you know, Donald Trump has already announced that I will be increasing tariffs on multiple countries, and countries such as Canada have retaliated as well. So that will lead to some problems in the global market. The trade policy uncertainties will disrupt the supply chain, which might affect our export performance as well. Because see, when a country imposes taxes on your products, you will have to reciprocate, means your products prices will increase. So we have to see how that actually comes up. As I am recording this video, Prime Minister Modi is about to go to America to see how our policy relations or how economic relations between India and US can now go forward. So it remains to be seen how the impact of Donald Trump's policies or Indian policies will result on the ground, or will have a result on the ground or not. These are the external risks. Internally, there is a risk about investment growth, which is dependent on the private sector. See, India for investment has for a long time been dependent on the private sector, private entities putting in their money in manufacturing, putting in their money in investment. It remains to be seen for them whether the market is lucrative enough. That is what the survey says. There is also a risk of inflation, there is also a risk of price fluctuation. Because of climate change, we might have disruption in the agriculture output as well. So it might lead to increase in prices of food as well. Then the first chapter ends by giving some policy recommendations as well to be followed moving forward. It says, number one, we should boost private investment, especially in the field of infrastructure and manufacturing. We should make it lucrative for the private businesses to invest. We should enhance competitiveness. We should have global reforms, structural reforms should be introduced, so that if an outside investor also wants to come in, they have enough confidence in our market. Strengthen the domestic demand, give more money in the hands of the people so that they can buy more products, push our own entrepreneurship, MSMEs, and also have strategic export expansion. Make sure that our export market also expands as much as possible. We can also look into tapping onto the fields of biotechnology, semiconductors, etc. This is what the first chapter of the economic survey says. Now, as promised, I also have a few questions to test yourself from this chapter. First question, which sector contributed the most to India's GDP in financial year 25? Not a difficult one. Agriculture, manufacturing, services and mining. I just told you it is services from where most of our growth has been coming in. Second, which of the following global economic challenges impacted India's trade in 2024? Rising global inflation, geopolitics in Middle East, slowdown in the global manufacturing, or all of the above? Which have been the economic challenges for India? All of them. This is what the economic survey says. All of them have had an impact on our trade in 2024. One more. What is the key structural reform suggested by the economic survey 2025 to enhance India's global competitiveness? Increase trade protectionism. Does it say that we should have trade protectionism? No, opposite. Deregulation, investment in infrastructure. Yes, this is what it says. We just discussed. Investment should be increased. Regulation should be reduced so that we make it lucrative for others to come and invest. More reliance on private sector? No, quite the opposite. Complete ban on foreign investment? No. It is actually the second one which the survey suggests. Here are some questions from the mains examination point of view. This is how the questions can be asked here. If you want, you can try and practice these questions as well. Which brings me to the end of chapter 1 summary. I'll be back soon with chapter number 2. We'll be covering all 13. Thank you so much for watching. Do consider joining the Question Marathon Prelims Crash Course for 2025 on my app. You can download the app from description of this video. I've given my WhatsApp number as well. You can text me in case of any confusion. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.